Hello, everybody. I hope you are well. My name is Jordan Wintle. I'm a senior lecturer at the University of Gloucestershire, working on our undergraduate and postgraduate teacher training programs. Prior to that, I'd worked in schools for 8 years as a PE teacher, and today I'm here to stimulate some conversation for you around bringing the curriculum to life in exam PE through using problem-based learning. And I think this could be a really important part of your pedagogy toolkit for you guys starting your careers as PE teachers. I think the first thing that I wanted to highlight with you was to look at the learners in front of you, and that is that they've made a choice to be there. So you've got a captive audience, or at least a partially captive audience. It may have been that PE was up against music and art in an option block. I think that's another debate for another time. But they have made a choice to be there, which gives you hopefully a little bit of leeway in terms of gaining their interest in the subject. And the reason they're there is largely because they're probably passionate about sport and physical activity, which gives you a great opportunity to bring the course to life through bringing their interests into the classroom. I'm sure you've heard about didactic teacher-led methods that rely on the textbook to deliver the curriculum content. These aren't engaging and they don't result in deep learning. So one way that we can start to bring the course to life, develop some learner autonomy and help develop a range of wider skills is through problem-based learning approach. And I'm going to briefly take you through that now. And I would then want to leave you with some discussion questions that you can have a chat about amongst yourselves to see how you think this might fit into your pedagogy. So problem-based learning is based around triggers. The triggers are the problems themselves, and that's part of the challenge for you as a teacher, is to come up with triggers that are going to help them to create the learning objectives that align with the specifications that you're working with. So that's where you've got to do a little bit of homework. From those triggers, they are then able to go off and do some independent, paired or small group work to help overcome the problem that you have presented them with. And that should be a real world problem taken from the world of sport, so that you can get them to use their own research skills and their own group work skills to come up with some ideas as to how they would do that. The final part is then around presenting their ideas back to the group, or using their information that they've found to answer some particular questions that you may have set them as well. It's not necessarily about solving the problem. Sometimes it's more about the research behind it that comes in. It's underpinned by constructivist pedagogies and has links with situated learning theory through Larvey and Wenger's work. And this can really be a powerful tool for you in the classroom. To give you a little bit of help in terms of why this might be valuable, it can be useful in several ways. And the first of those is that it can help to generate deep and meaningful learning. And the second part is around some of the wider character behaviors and attributes that the young people are needed. Many of the students that we teach won't necessarily go on to use the knowledge that we help them gain within their lives, unless they're going to go into a role in a sports setting or physical activity setting. They might not use some of the information that we're delivering to them. So I think it's really important that we acknowledge that we're not just about developing people to pass exams. Schools have been criticized for that in the past. We want to develop some of those wider skills, and this really comes into the fore with some of the things that you can see on the screen now. So developing some of those wider character behaviors, being work ready or ready for the next stage of education as well. So it's really important that as a school and as an education system, we're not just trying to fill people with information and knowledge. We're developing them holistically and providing them with some skills that are going to be able to use in their future lives as well. Why does this have a good fit in exam PE? So we want to bring the course to life. We want to make it realistic. And if we think about just stuff that happened at the weekend, so there's VAR issues in the Premier League. We've got concussions going on in the Six Nations. We've got Joe Root scoring 200 in India, Venus Williams rolling her ankle in the Australian Open. And these are all great opportunities that we can link to parts of the examination PE curriculum, whether that's at GCSE, A-level, Cambridge Nationals, BTECs. There's all parts that link into some of those scenarios in there. So these present real good opportunities for us to bring real life problems into the classroom to help them realize that the learning that they're doing from the specification is applicable in the real world as well. I'm going to take you through a short example. So here's an example of a research task that I've set around technology in sport. And this is a resource that I would give to the pupils and then explain to them how to use it. So we've got a scenario that gives some background information, and this is all about technology in cycling, linked into the GCSE, PE, AQA syllabus around the advantages and disadvantages of technology use in sport. I've given them a specific role. So they're the technology researcher for a new cycling team. And I've given them some resources to go and have a look at. So QR codes to take them to appropriate level resources, which is really important. You need to be able to check that where they're getting their information from is accurate and at the appropriate level for the qualifications that they're studying. I've also given them some really clear learning outcomes that come from the specification. So through doing the research task that they've been given, they're going to help to meet those learning outcomes. And then I've got some kind of low stakes assessment stuff in there as well around some exam questions that they can then go and use the information that they've gained to go and answer. And I don't need them to do those in exam conditions. They can actually just work in small groups or pairs to bullet point the answers. But what it is about is getting them to be able to apply the knowledge that they've gained within that exam setting, which is obviously going to be an important part of their course delivery as well. The problems have got to trigger some interest. They've got to be clear. They should then stimulate some critical thinking and promote some student-directed learning. Try and make it as real world as possible. And if there's some elements in there where they've got to work in small groups or teams, I think that's a really good part of the course where we can develop that as well. Moving on, some questions for you to think about in discussion, and I'll let Ash pick out which of these he thinks would be most appropriate if you haven't got time for all of them. But think about the skill sets that the pupils need in order to successfully negotiate problem-based learning tasks, and how would we scaffold that, I guess, comes on to the second question. Thinking about the teacher role, so when we've gone into this more student-led approach, what happens to the teacher role and what kind of behaviors would we exhibit as a teacher supporting this kind of approach? Where would you see this fit in the curriculum? So what parts of the curriculum would this be good for? Which parts of the curriculum would it not be so good for, and why? And what potential issues could you see coming up with an approach like this, and how might you mitigate against some of these? So I will leave you with those questions to discuss, and hope that they will promote some interesting debate. Thank you very much.